for the capital. Deluge, devastation and destruction. Worst floods in Punjab in decades. At least 37 dead, over 3.5 lakh affected. Rivers swallow all 23 districts of Punjab. Over 1,650 villages have been severely impacted.
And joining us now is Sanjeev Sanyal, economist, author and member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. Mr. Sanyal, good morning to you and thank you for your time here on India Today. What kind of change do you expect from the announcements made last night?
Well, you have to know a little bit of the history. So when GST was introduced in 2017, what happened is that most of the rates and slabs were equivalent to whatever existed earlier. So some changes were made, but the idea was really to take everything onto the new system with the least amount of disruption. So there wasn't a first principles look at why some rate was at certain level. It just was a carryover from whatever existed earlier. So now that the system has worked now for 8 good years, the idea here is that, look, now we need to go back to first principles and see, for example, why a certain rate is at a certain level and so on. And of course, generally to simplify and bring the whole level down. So that is basically the idea. And you will have seen that, for example, things like cement have now come into a much lower slab. It was a repeated complaint earlier. Food items of various kinds have either gone into a much lower slab or completely eliminated from the GST system, and so on and so forth.
Okay, and Mr. Sanyal, since you speak about 8 years, the former finance minister, Mr. P. Chidambaram, has said that these reforms are 8 years too late. And while making the announcements, the current finance minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, too, had said that Prime Minister had been pushing her for a few months. So the question is this a case of too much too late?
No, I mean, the fact of the matter is, you see, shifting from the old complicated system that you will remember in 2017 was no small feat. And many countries that have attempted to do this have had years of economic turmoil. So we shifted it with the idea that, look, cause the least amount of disruption possible. I mean, it's still disruptive, but cause the least amount of disruption possible and shift onto a new system, which we did. And then it took us some time to stabilize it as well. And then we fixed quite a lot of things along the way. So it's not like the system we introduced in 2017 is the system that we are now fixing. So iteratively, we fixed a lot of things. But then the idea came that, look, now that the system is reasonably stable, we genuinely understand how it works. Because remember, there are all kinds of issues of cascading, inversion, and so on. So all of these are now that they have been fully understood. We have gone ahead and done it. One could argue they could have done it a few months earlier or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, I'm glad that even those who are usually critics agree that these reforms need to be done, and they have been now done.
And why are these reforms being called a big bonanza, festive, package being given by the Prime Minister? Some are even saying that this is a time for celebration, it's landmark. Your own words are that this is next generation. What makes these reforms next generation reforms?
Well, whether you want to use celebratory terms to describe it or not is up to you. I'm just telling you as a technocrat that any such big reform, when you do a structural reform like introducing GST, you have to basically have at the back of your mind that over a period of time you will have to iterate it and make it better. So this is nothing surprising about it. Even at that time we had said we would do this. And indeed into the far future you will see future generations also tinkering with it. But at this juncture what we have done, we have clearly lowered the burden of taxes for the vast majority of items. I don't think anybody will debate us on that. And, at a time where inflation anywhere is very well behaved, you are further lowering the pressure on prices. I think it's good. I mean, it provides lots of space for other kinds of macroeconomic measures that can be taken to keep the economy running on an even keel.
Several opposition rule states remain uncomfortable with these changes because their concerns are that they could lose revenue. The revenue secretary said that it's not about losses but revenue implications. Whatever terminology you may use, how do you respond to these apprehensions then?
See, these things are done iteratively all the time. Remember, this was passed through unanimously, so it's not like even those who have some reservations do not agree with the changes overall. However, if there are certain reservations, we will look into it and fix it along the way. So, if you lower taxes in general, of course, it does mean that at least in the first iteration, the collection of taxes will go down. However, over time, the idea is that the economy grows as a result of better efficiency and expanding the tax net, and that you benefit back from the simplification. Otherwise, this is true of every kind of tax simplification, not just this one.
And sir, do you see these GST reforms perhaps helping to offset or cushion the negative impact of the recent US tariff hikes on Indian exports?
Well, to some extent it could. Simplification is a good thing, but let me clarify that this is a part of our longer term agenda, and it's not being driven just because we have having certain turbulence in our tariffs vis-a-vis US or any other country for that matter. So this set of reforms would have been done anyway, but yes, it helps that it happens at a time when we may see a lot of turbulence on the external sector. So this helps as well. But by the way, let me also remind people that it's not just about the tax slabs. There are certain amount of process reforms that have also been introduced to simplify things. For example, there were repeated complaints that simply the registration itself was taking a lot of time. So the process reforms for that have also been simplified, and now some 97% estimated of registrations will happen within 3 days.
Okay, and the finance minister, when she was speaking about the rationalization of GST rates, said that this will have a positive impact on the GDP. What kind of impact is being calculated here?
It's difficult to put a number on this for obvious reasons, because the idea here is not so much the first order impacts, but the second order impacts of efficiency. Difficult to put a number on it, but longer term, simplification of taxes, lowering the tax burden, generally speaking, leads to a more efficient, productive economy, and that is the aim here. This was the aim even at the time the GST was introduced. There were all kinds of numbers about how exactly the economy will grow, but frankly, these things can't be modeled. Because there will be all kinds of complex impacts on the system. And by the way, we will continue monitoring this, because it's not like there will not be other things that we can improve on.
So how big is the shift this is going to be?
I think it's a big shift, but it also needs to be seen in the wider context. That GST is not the only thing the way we are doing reforms. There are a large number of process reforms that have also been promised by the Honorable Prime Minister. As you will know, a couple of committees have been formed on deregulation that will be looking into it, headed by Niti Aayog member Mr. Gauba, the former Cabinet Secretary. And there are other efforts too. So this has to be seen as a part of a much wider effort to up the game.
6 months ago, Mr. Sanyal, in the budget, there was that big announcement with regards to the tax cuts. And now we are seeing this. When the announcement was made by the finance minister, she spoke about the impact on several groups. And she spoke particularly in the context of the middle class, the farmers, and also the Aam Aadmi. Do you see this as continuity then?
Yes, and specifically in the case of the middle class that you mentioned, let me say that we are an aspirational society. We are talking of removing absolute poverty, and of course, we have seen that some, over 200 million people have been removed from absolute poverty in the last decade or so. And that, that's not just our numbers, international agencies like World Bank and so on also have very high numbers of literally hundreds of millions of people moved out of poverty. Now, when you move them out of poverty, where do they go? They go into the middle class eventually. I mean, some eventually lower middle class, middle class, and so on. So, when you are dealing with an aspirational society, you also have to create the spaces for this class to grow into. So what we are doing is, first the income tax cuts up to, zero tax till 12 lakhs. Now, with these measures, you're basically creating the space for the middle class to grow into this space. And, as for an aspirational society, that's exactly what you should be attempting to do.
As an economic historian, you often place today's policy in a wider frame, Mr. Sanyal. With the visuals we are seeing out of the SEO summit in Tianjin and multiple conversations which are happening about a new global economic order, where do you see India positioning itself in this clearly evolving landscape?
So we are an emerging world power. We are not there yet, but we are clearly emerging. We will be, in the next couple of years or so, becoming the world's third largest economy. We are the world's largest population. We are, at least at the regional level, a military power of some consequence. So what it does mean is that we need to begin to stand up for our interests. In the past, we had done this somewhat more apologetically, but as you may have seen that we have stopped being apologetic about the matter. This does not mean that we will escalate matters with our trading partners or specifically with the US, but we will stand our ground. So if you see what we have done in the last few months, as this whole tariff issue has spiraled out, that we have not made irresponsible statements. We have, by and large, been playing this very softly at one level, but at the same time we are standing up for our interests. So it's not like we are escalating things out, but it is also not the case that we are backing down.
So would you then say that the reason why the GST reforms were announced today, I mean, in fact, last night, it comes into effect from 22nd of September, has to do with unpredictability, one would say, attached to the ongoing trade talks with the United States?
I don't think you can link them one is to one. Fact of the matter is that, as I mentioned, as a rising global power, we now need to learn to stand up for our interests, and we are doing so. That requires us, of course, to build on our own economy. But do remember that, we should be investing back into our economy anyway to keep it going at a high rate of growth. The first quarter number came in at a very strong 7.8%, higher than I expected anyway. And so you have very good growth momentum, but you have to keep feeding that growth momentum. Otherwise, it will lose steam. So this is why it is important that we keep building our economic strength up, irrespective of what is happening externally. Now, of course, the coincidence that this happens at such a particular geopolitical juncture, you can read what you want into it. But I would say that we would have cleaned up and simplified and lowered the GST system, irrespective of this current external situation.
All right, Sanjeev Sanyal, economist, author, and member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. I appreciate your time joining us this morning and explaining the larger import and the thought behind the GST reforms. That's all from me. Shreya, over to you for the rest of the news and updates.
Thank you, Maria. Well, with that, as we speak of the big GST bonanza, the Modi government has delivered on its Independence Day promise of the next generation GST reforms. The GST Council gave its nod for the reforms, which will roll out for the GST 2.0 from September 22nd. The GST Council, as chaired by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, approved a simplified structure, just two slabs, 5% and 18%, along with a 40% slab for sin and luxury goods. Now, the older 12% and 28% slabs are now gone. Let's in fact listen in to what the Finance Minister had to say while announcing these very reforms.
Reduction of GST from 12% or from 18% to 5%. इसमें फूड आइटम्स बहुत सारे हैं, नमकीन से भुजिया है, सॉसेस है, पास्ता है, इंस्टेंट नूडल्स है, चॉकलेट्स, कॉफी, प्रिजर्व्ड मीट, कॉर्नफ्लेक्स, बटर, घी, ये सब 5% में आ रही है. कॉमन मैन एंड मिडिल क्लास आइटम्स में there is a complete reduction. Reduction from 18 or from 12 to 5%. I list out those items, all of whom have come to 5% from either 18 or from 12. Common man items such as hair oil, toilet soap, bars, soap bars, shampoos, toothbrushes, toothpaste, bicycles, tableware, kitchenware and other household articles have all come to 5, whether they were in 18 or whether they were in 12. Similarly, reduction of GST from 5% to nil. 5 से 0 में जाने वाले items indicate कर रहा हूं. Ultra high temperature milk, the UHT milk, chena or paneer, all the Indian breads will see nil rate. So roti kisi ke upar bhi, chapati or roti or paratha or whatever it is, they all come to nil. But on the compensation cess, we've discussed it today very clearly. It will continue on those goods which I mentioned, the tobacco and tobacco-related products, over and above the 28%, which is the system which prevails now, till such a time that we repay the loan. And after that, there will not be a cess. And those items which were with compensation cess have already been proposed to be at 40% because they are sin goods rate. They are, as I said, 40% is not part of the scheme of things, it's at the extreme. No other good will go there except for these tobacco-related products. So they will be, the incidence will be on them at 40%.
We have estimated a figure. We expect that the net fiscal implication, we would not call it as a revenue loss because that doesn't seem to be the correct terminology. But net revenue implication of this proposal is expected, we have estimated it to be around 48,000 crores. This is on the consumption base of 23-24 because that is where we had all the segregated data. We do expect these positive changes will have and we believe that in this entire exercise will be fiscally sustainable both for center as well as the states.
Now viewers, let's take you in depth as to how the GST boost is going to play out for the Aam Aadmi. This is a 2.0 boost that we are looking at for the Aam Aadmi. The first slab that we are looking at is how 18% is now coming down to 0. This is for individual health and life insurance, which is of prime importance at this given point, one that people have been looking forward to for a long time now. Again, 12% to nil. What are the items that we're looking at here? Maps, charts, globes, pencils, sharpeners, crayons, exercise books and notebooks. So heavily stationary items that we're looking at which will help out students and the education sector. If we now look at the GST reply for Indians in terms of the GST slab, what's coming down from 12% to 5%. There are several of the eatable products which are butter, ghee, cheese, namkeens, bhujia, mixtures. So these are heavily dairy-based products and some, in fact, other stuff that we are also seeing listed in this very particular slab. Your kitchenware like utensils, feeding bottles, again napkins and diapers for kids, sewing machines and power tractors, biopesticides, micronutrients, drip irrigation system and sprinklers. So these are some of the agricultural products that we are looking at, which shall also be in fact expecting relief from the high taxes. Horticultural or forestry machines as well as agricultural machines, medical grade oxygen glucometer and test strips and corrective spectacles. So these are some of the equipments from the medical sector which will be coming under this very slab of 5% from the 12%. So these are some of the particular slabs we are looking at and the products within these slabs which shall in fact be, affected, or rather much welcome move in which it will be affected, or rather affecting the daily consumers out there when we speak of consumption. Now the GST Council, remember, has pulled off in one day what was expected to take two rolling out the biggest tax reform since 2017. Led by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, the Council has simplified India's GST structure to just two slabs. This is 5% and 18% that we're looking at, with a nil rate, remember, for essentials and 40% for sin and luxury goods. Insurance premiums, life-saving drugs, which includes cancer medication, and basic food products like roti and paneer, however, are now completely exempt of any taxation when we speak of the GST. Let's take a look at this comprehensive report on the same.
This reform is not just on rationalizing rates. It's also on structural reforms. It's also on ease of living.
It was expected to take the GST Council 2 days, the 3rd and the 4th of September, to bring about the biggest reforms in the goods and services tax. But it took just 1 day for the apex GST body, headed by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and comprising the finance ministers of all states, to reach its decision on sweeping reforms. 8 years after the goods and services tax replaced a slew of central and state taxes, subsuming them into one nation, one tax, the GST Council made the structure less complicated by replacing 4 tax brackets with just 2. The previous slabs of 5, 12, 18 and 28% will be replaced by 2 slabs of 5 and 18%. There will be a NIP slab as well and a 40% slab for sin and luxury goods.
All this will be effective 22nd September 2025, which is the first day of Navaratri. The changes in GST rates of all goods, except for pan masala, gutka, cigarettes, chewing tobacco, products like zarda, unmanufactured tobacco, BD, will be implemented with effect from 22nd September 25. Except for these,
insurance premiums, both for life and health policies, will now be exempt from GST. There is also total exemption of several life-saving cancer drugs and medicines for rare diseases. Ultra-high temperature milk, chena and paneer and Indian breads like roti, chapati and paratha are also exempt. The 5% slab will include items for the middle class like hair oil, soaps, shampoos, cycles, kitchenware, household articles, food items, spectacles, man-made textiles and yarns, as well as items for agriculture used like pesticides, horticulture and agri-machines including tractors, and also on handicrafts, marble, granite, intermediate leather goods and renewable energy devices. The higher 18% slab will comprise air conditioners, all televisions, dishwashers, cars with engine capacity of under 1200 cc, two-wheelers with an engine capacity of under or equal to 350 cc, all auto parts, tractors, three-wheelers, buses, trucks and ambulances. As expected, sin and luxury goods including tobacco products, aerated drinks with added sugar, carbonated and caffeinated beverages, mid and large size cars, large engine two-wheelers and personal aircraft and yachts will attract 40% GST. IPL also moved to 40%.
A lot of industries have already come out and have committed that they will be transmitting this benefits too. Administratively, both at the state level as well as at the CBIC level, we will definitely be engaging with the industry and seeing to it that the benefits to the consumer, as is planned as per the exercise, is going to be transmitted to the consumers.
The government expects a net revenue to fall by around 48,000 crore rupees on consumption figures based in 2023 and 24. The centre, however, says the shortfall will be more than made up by the increase in economic activities.
We expect that the net fiscal implication, we would not call it as a revenue loss because that doesn't seem to be the correct terminology. But net revenue implication of this proposal is expected, we have estimated it to be around 48,000 crores.
The GST rationalization comes at a time when the industry is facing global trade headwinds and fresh tariff hikes by the US have raised concerns about India's export prospects. Analysts expect the boost in domestic consumption to offset some of this impact. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
Now, Ashutosh Mishra joins us at this given point in the bulletin to, in fact, bring us more updates and details. Ashutosh, from what we can gather, you are currently at an automobile showroom, if I'm not wrong. Take us through how the auto sector is reacting to this GST reforms. What are you picking up from the ground?
Honestly telling you, Shah, even I was planning to buy a car, but ever since I heard the Prime Minister, like many others, the GST gonna be reduced soon. So even I, gave that idea for a halt, for a pause, and eventually that became a crisis for, entire this sector. So many of the people who thought let the GST rates cut down. Now, since we are hearing a major relief that all these vehicles, at least these hatchback section series, the 4-meter long, these vehicles under 1200 cc's, we're going to buy that eventually will reduce the cost by up to 60,000 to 75,000. Now, there's a major concern as well. For now, it's indeed, we are going to a celebration time, festive time, and that is giving to huge relief for the middle class, salaried class, lower middle class, people planning to buy air conditions, television, upgrade their televisions, buy new cars, planning to buy two-wheelers. So that gives them a relief. But here the trick is that eventually it would all depend upon the input cost. Now, 22nd September is the date when this new rates, the change in slabs or the new slabs going to come into effect. But whether it is going to also affect the input cost, because all these vehicles which are already been manufactured, delivered in the market, they have their own input cost from the rubber tire, from the metals, from the glasses, everything they have purchased from the market with the previous GST rates. How are they going to manage with that cost, and whether these vehicles, like for these automobile sector, whether it is going to be impacted positively from 22nd of the September, because that again directly related to the input cost. Subsequent to that, we as we are in the FMCG sector, paneer, curd, the bread and everything, that eventually is very easy. Probably in 24 to 48 hours that could be implemented. But when it comes to automobile sector, that in fact is a driving factor of our economy, where exactly the experts are keeping a close tab. Is all depends on how they're going to recover the input cost. Subsequent to that, hypothetically, if you imagine if this particular cost costs you around 10 lakh rupees, and then there is a 28% of the GST slab. Now that is reduced to 18%, giving relief of 10% of the GST rate. Whether they're going to continue with the price of these hatchback series of the cars exactly at 10 lakh rupees, 1 million rupees, or they're going to raise the price up to 11 lakh, 1.1 million, 1.2 million, and they come down further. Look, we are giving you some subsidies, some relief, some major discount of the GST benefit, take 50,000 off, and then we are selling you it at the cost of 10.5 or 11 lakh rupees. So there are many tricks, how the market drives when it comes to festive season or selling their products. So despite the GST relief, if you remember, post-COVID, certain compensation, massive compensations were given to the corporate and the private sector firm. But was that transferred to the end users, the consumers like us? That remains a major concern, and that's exactly what also experts believe.
Right.
Unless the MRP, unless the price cost post GST relaxation is transferred to the users, it is very unlikely to help the economy.
Right, Ashutosh, thank you for that detailed analysis at this given point as to how this translates in the markets, especially when we speak of the automobile sector. With that, viewers, while we speak of the GST, there's also another angle at this given point. There's another aspect to this very story that's blowing up. Let's take you through that in detail now. This is politics erupting over the centre's decision to cut the GST rates, with the Congress welcoming the move but saying it's 8 years too late for reforms. Senior Congress leader and former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has said the rationalization of GST and reduction in rates on essential goods and services was welcome but overdue, adding that the current GST framework should never have been introduced in the very first place. The Congress has accused the Modi government of punishing the poor and crushing MSMEs for 8 years under what it has long dubbed the Gabbar Singh tax. Chidambaram said the opposition had been crying hoarse about the adverse impact of the existing GST structure, but their concerns were completely ignored. He has also questioned the timing of the government's move, suggesting it may be linked to the recent international developments, particularly high tariffs imposed by the United States. Meanwhile, Union Home Minister Amit Shah has praised the GST reform, saying Prime Minister Modi had delivered on his commitment. He said the rate cuts and the process simplification both will be bringing major relief to the poor and the middle class, while also supporting farmers, MSMEs, women and youth. With that, viewers, we're now in fact going to slip into a short break. But however, on the other side, catch us with a big story that we bring to you. This is from the BJP upping its ante against the opposition. The BJP workers have now hit the streets with Rai Shankar Prasad leading the charge. This with more details lined up for you on the other side of India's agenda. Stay tuned.
I choose a world where we dream, and the limit is the sky. And this world is my home where I'm living my best.
Mindfully crafted home decor fabrics. Sansar, a D-Decor brand. Live consciously.
मंगलदीप, दिल से करो बात भगवान के साथ। मंगलदीप धूप कोन्स 2 गुनी खुशबू के साथ दे पूजा का बेहतर अनुभव।
Moto G96 5G, all eyes on you.
Hi, here are the top headlines. Presented by Motorola. German minister says, India-Germany open to doubling trade. Giriraj Singh on Trump tariff says, this disaster is an opportunity. Most wanted gangster Manpal Badli extradited from Cambodia.
India's longest-standing biannual survey, India Today Mood of the Nation. How many seats for BJP elections were held today? How do you rate Operation Sindoor? How is the opposition performing? Who is India's best chief minister? Who should be the next prime minister? India Today Mood of the Nation has the answers. Don't miss out. 500 rupees off on all digital and print plus digital plans.